My friends, just today against the Bears, our team showed who's in charge on the field and secured a victory to remember. The energy is still fresh, the adrenaline's pumping, and I know you felt it too. The Lions played with heart, grit, and the kind of fight that makes us proud to wear the Honolulu blue. Now I gotta ask you, what was the moment that made you jump out of your seat today? Drop it down in the comments because this game was packed with chills and thrills. And listen, before we dive into every single detail of this win, make sure you smash that like button because if there's one day that deserves to be celebrated, it's today. Every like helps spread the voice of Lions Nation and shows the entire NFL that we're in this together. Stick with me until the end because we're breaking down all the highlights, the big plays, and what this victory means for the rest of the season. Lions family, today is a celebration day. The Lions just dropped 52 points on the Chicago Bears and silenced every bit of criticism that was hanging over them after last week. Think about that for a second. 52 points against a divisional rival in a game where the offense, defense, and special teams all showed up. This wasn't just a win. This was a statement, a message to the rest of the NFL that the Detroit Lions are not to be overlooked. The offense had been under fire all week, called out for being flat and uninspired, and yet here we are talking about Jared Goff delivering one of the best performances of his Lions career. 23 completions on 28 attempts, 334 yards, and 5 touchdowns. He was surgical. He was in full command of the game, reading the defense, standing tall in the pocket, distributing the ball with confidence. And when Goff plays like this, the entire team follows his lead. That's what we saw today, and that's why he's the unquestioned MVP of this matchup. And then there's Amon-Ra St. Brown, who was simply unstoppable. 9 catches, 3 of them for touchdowns, racking up 115 yards. Every time the ball came his way, he looked like he was on a different level. A player who knows how to rise when the spotlight is brightest. 3 touchdowns in one game doesn't just earn you a game ball. It cements you as the offensive weapon that defenses will lose sleep over. Combine that with the ground game, Jahmyr Gibbs rushing for 94 yards and a score on just 12 carries, David Montgomery pounding the rock, and an offensive line that was finally playing like a unit that understands its importance, and you've got the formula for Lions football. Time in the pocket, running lanes for the backs, and enough firepower to keep a defense guessing all afternoon. But credit where it's due, John Morton's play calling turned heads today. Just a week ago, he was the target of criticism, accused of being too bland, too predictable. Against Chicago, he flipped the script. Play action right out of the gate, explosive passes downfield, even sprinkling in a few trick plays. It was everything fans had been begging for. Morton called an aggressive, unpredictable game, and the result was an offense that looked unstoppable. The one-handed grab from Isaac Tesla before halftime. That's a highlight we'll be replaying all season, a play that embodies exactly what happens when this offense decides to open up and use its full arsenal. Of course, this wasn't just about the offense. The defense came to play, and they came with a plan. Caleb Williams had been hyped as the test, the mobile quarterback who could exploit weaknesses, but Aaron Glenn's unit shut that down. 4 sacks on the day, led by Aiden Hutchinson, Marcus Davenport, Brian Branch, and Al-Quadin Muhammad, who stepped up as the rotational piece and delivered. And how about Tyreek Williams? 2 passes deflected, 1 leading to an interception. DJ Reed flying around the field. The Bears had their opening scripted drive, and sure, they scored. But after that, it was lights out. Chicago's run game was stuffed. Their quarterback contained, their rhythm completely broken. And the best part? This has been the Achilles heel of Detroit's defense for years, stopping mobile quarterbacks, and they passed the test. Now, it wasn't all perfect. Injuries are still a concern, with Marcus Davenport going down again and Brian Branch hobbling off late. Those are setbacks we'll have to monitor closely, especially with a big matchup against the Ravens looming. But even with those issues, the defensive line kept the pressure consistent, the secondary held their ground, and the unit played with an edge we didn't see last week against Green Bay. It felt different. It felt like everyone came into this game motivated to make a statement, and they delivered. Special teams also did their job, setting up favorable field position, forcing the Bears to start deep in their own territory and winning the hidden yardage battle. Sure, a missed field goal stings, but when you're dominating in all 3 phases of the game, those mistakes don't linger. The Lions were relentless, never letting up. And when Chicago tried to play physical, even dirty at times, like that hit aimed at Hutchinson's legs, the response was pure Detroit grit. You want to play that way? Fine, we'll bury you under 50 points. That's exactly what they did. So here we are sitting at 1-1, but with a completely different energy than a week ago. The loss to the Packers, forget it. This win against Chicago is the one fans needed. The one that restores confidence, that proves this team can respond to adversity and punch back harder. And it wasn't just the scoreline, it was how they did it. Aggressive offense, stifling defense, smart special teams. This is the blueprint. This is the Lions team we've been waiting to see. And as Dan Campbell said, it's all about building, all about climbing toward the ultimate goal, the playoffs, and beyond that, a Super Bowl run. Fans, the floor is yours now. Was Jared Goff your MVP, or does Amon-Ra St. Brown's 3-touchdown performance steal the spotlight? Do you believe this was the turning point for John Morton's offense, or do you still want to see more consistency? Drop your thoughts, because after a 52-point explosion like this, we've got plenty to celebrate and plenty to debate. And let's be real, this one felt personal. It wasn't just about beating the Bears, it was about sending a message to Ben Johnson. The former Lions offensive coordinator who built his reputation here was standing on the opposite sideline, and Detroit dropped 52 on him. That wasn't a coincidence. That was a statement. You don't just score 52 points by chance. You do it to show that the offense has evolved, that this team doesn't need to live in the shadow of its past. John Morton and Jared Goff ran the show, and they made sure Johnson walked out of that stadium knowing Detroit is doing just fine without him. That storyline alone makes this victory taste even sweeter. Think about how this game unfolded. The Bears came out hot, driving down the field on that scripted first possession. They punched it in and it could have rattled a less confident team. But instead, the Lions settled down, adjusted, and then unloaded. Drive after drive, explosive plays, touchdowns piling up until the score looked like something out of a video game. And it wasn't fluky. It was efficient, calculated, and relentless. Every time Chicago thought they had an answer, Detroit came back harder. That's the mentality of a contender, the kind of resilience you need to build momentum for the rest of the season. The chemistry between Goff and St. Brown is something special. When your quarterback and star receiver are that in sync, the offense feels unstoppable. Add in Gibbs' burst, Montgomery's power, and a line that looked completely rejuvenated, and suddenly you've got balance. That's the kind of offensive versatility that forces defenses to pick their poison. And either way, they're going to get burned. And let's not overlook Isaac Tesla. That one-handed snag before halftime wasn't just a highlight. It was a spark. A reminder that this team has more playmakers than opponents are ready for.
Defensively, what stood out the most wasn't just the sacks or the turnovers, it was the discipline. Mobile quarterbacks have been a nightmare for Detroit for years, and Caleb Williams was the perfect test. Yet Shep's game plan was flawless. The edges held contained, the rush stayed disciplined, and the secondary capitalized. It felt like every level of the defense was working in unison, and that's something we don't always get to say. Sure, Davenport's injury casts a shadow, and Branch limping off raises concern, but the way Alquadin Muhammad and Tyreek Williams stepped up proves that this unit has depth. That's what playoff teams are built on. And let's circle back to the culture piece, because this win screams Dan Campbell football. Aggressive, resilient, physical, and unapologetic. When the Bears tried to play dirty, Detroit didn't back down, they doubled down. Dropping 50-plus points isn't just about scoring, it's about imposing your will. It's about making the other team quit, and that's exactly what happened. The Bears started with swagger, but by the fourth quarter, they were broken. Detroit had taken their best shot and responded with haymakers. That's the kind of identity Campbell has been preaching since day one, and this game was the purest example of it yet. Special teams quietly played their part in all of this. Field position matters, and Detroit controlled it all game. Kicking, coverage, and returns tilted the field in their favor, and while a missed field goal is something to clean up, it didn't derail anything. When all three phases complement each other like that, it creates a margin of safety. Even if one unit slips, the others can pick it up. That's what makes teams dangerous deep into the season. So where do we stand now? At 1-1, it's easy to shrug and say the Lions are just breaking even. But this feels bigger. This feels like the kind of win that changes a season, that resets the tone in the locker room, and that sends a ripple through the NFC. The Packers may have gotten the upper hand in Week 1, but the response was emphatic. And now, with the Ravens looming, Detroit has the kind of confidence and swagger you need going into a heavyweight matchup. Here's the question for you, Lions fans. Was this the breakthrough moment you were waiting for? Do you see this as the game where the offense proved it can carry this team to the playoffs? Or do you want to see this level sustained before buying in completely? Drop your comments below, because after a performance like this, the conversation isn't just about one win. It's about whether the Detroit Lions just showed us a glimpse of the team that can finally take the next step. And if we zoom out for a moment, the significance of this game runs deeper than just the box score. For years, Lions fans have been waiting for a team that doesn't just show flashes but actually delivers complete, dominant performances. We've seen one side of the ball click while the other struggles, or we've watched the Lions hang around but fail to close. Against the Bears, none of that was the case. This was balance. This was execution. This was Detroit dictating terms from start to finish. That matters, because it shows this roster is capable of playing complementary football, the exact type you need when the stakes rise in December and January. It's also worth highlighting how the players responded to criticism. Last week, the narrative was brutal. The offense looked flat, the play calling was uninspired, and questions were being asked about whether this team had lost some of the fire that carried them in recent years. But this week, they didn't just answer those questions, they flipped them upside down. Goff looked like a top-tier quarterback. St. Brown reminded everyone why he's a star. The offensive line answered the call and gave their QB the protection he needed. And Morton showed that he can adjust, adapt, and scheme with creativity. That's not just growth, that's resilience, and resilience is the DNA of a contender. Defensively, the biggest takeaway has to be how the unit contained Caleb Williams. If you followed Detroit long enough, you know mobile quarterbacks have historically been a nightmare. But today, it was different. The edges sealed lanes, the linebackers stayed disciplined, and the secondary was opportunistic. Williams barely had room to breathe, and the few times he tried to extend plays, the Lions made him pay. For sacks, constant pressure, and a run defense that smothered DeAndre Swift to just 63 yards on 12 carries, it was the kind of performance that can give this group confidence moving forward. Now, we do have to talk about the injuries, because they can't be ignored. Marcus Davenport going down is concerning. He's battled availability issues his whole career, and this setback doesn't help. Brian Branch limping off late adds another layer of worry. These are important players, and their health will be crucial, especially with Baltimore on deck. But what's encouraging is seeing rotational guys like Al-Quad and Muhammad step up seamlessly. That's what separates the good teams from the great ones, when depth players can step in without the level dropping. And let's not forget the energy from Dan Campbell on the sideline. You could feel it, the intensity, the urgency, the drive to not just win but dominate. This wasn't a coach trying to scrape by. This was a coach sending a message through his team's play. That we're not backing down mentality seeped into every snap, and the result was a team that looked hungry, focused, and relentless. That's contagious. That's how you build belief not only in the locker room but in the entire fan base. For the fans, this game has to feel cathartic. After the frustrations of week one, after years of ups and downs, to watch your team dismantle a divisional rival on the road and hang 52 points is the kind of memory you hold on to. It's the kind of game you replay in your head when you think about where this season might be headed. Sure, it's just one win, but it's a win that carries weight. It's a win that says, this is who we can be. And that matters, because momentum is real in the NFL, and confidence can snowball. So the question I'll leave you with is this. Do you think this performance was the true identity of the Detroit Lions? Or was it just a statement game sparked by emotion and a familiar face on the other sideline? Can this level of execution become the norm? Or was this a peak performance that will be hard to repeat week after week? Let me know your thoughts, because the conversation after this one is just as important as the celebration.